recordings on your. All right, so we were here. This is just more of the same sort of concept. What you should get out of this is that there's more than one personality type. Actually, you know, there's like 5 different aspects of personalities, and there's many different personality types. You can do a personality test. There's psychology exams that will do that. But I mean, there's sort of 5 areas that they test you on, you know, which is, are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert? Are you conscientious, or are you not? Are you open to new experiences, or do you like to be? Are you conservative? Do you like to stick with your old ideas? And so these are different things in different people within the same family, right? And within a different friend group, people have these different personalities, and it does impact upon their leadership style. And so the thing that I guess the idea is kind of an extension of the idea that 2 heads are better than one, being that we can take advantage of all of those differences in people's way of working, and we can apply them definitely at different things that are happening in the team. And that's all that's about. So the most successful teams are actually taking advantage of all those differences, and they're being applied. So yeah, the service desk has a role to play. Service desk relates to how efficiently the entire company is working, etc. Now, the idea of this diagram is to get us to think about focusing on the company goals. So if you see here, we've got all these arrows going out in many different directions, and that's because every individual that comes to work in a team has their own sort of agendas that they sort of work on. And that comes back to the office politics that we had that little interaction about. And yeah, as I said, it wasn't something that I ever really liked to take up, because basically office politics, I would say, is this, where people come to their work and they have their individual goals, and they're working toward those, and they're gathering other people to help them to meet those goals, rather than working towards the organizational goals. And so yeah, I think it's not a good thing. With the company goal, the idea here is that every person in the organization can orientate themselves, at least while they're working, toward the company goals, and hopefully that their own personal goals, some of those will line up with it, and that they can pursue those. And so yeah, so if they can achieve their personal goals within the framework of the company goals, that's ideal. That means they have a good match. If they're not, well, then they may not be matched well for that role that they're doing. Okay, so here we get back to some familiar territory. I think when I say familiar territory is, we've talked about this before. We have the automatic call distribution system. The automatic call distribution system can record things like calls that are happening. So there can be some monitoring involved, and that can be used as a teaching tool. We talked about that when we were talking about answering the phone. So some things that we can measure availability of this is measuring availability of a system, right? So availability is measured as a percentage. What percent of the time are our systems available to our customers, and so we want that to be a big number, obviously, much more than 90%, 99%, 99.99 something percent. Yeah, we can measure the courtesy, I suppose, courtesy, knowledge, and success. Courtesy, we would measure that. The only way that we could measure that is through the eyes of our customers. So they could respond to surveys, etc. But we have these measures that, as you can see, we actually have sort of like almost a mathematical formula for them, right? The average call duration, the time idle, the average length of time that the analyst is idle. So those things can be measured on the system, just by having some device on the system that sort of measures the time, etc. The time that you're spending on a call, the time that you spend before you answer the call, that type of thing. Yeah, so here we have the average handle time. What's the average time that this person in the service desk speaks talking to somebody on the phone? Now, from a service desk point of view, you want efficiency, which is productivity on a time basis. So you want to have as many sort of solutions in as short a time as possible. So obviously, you have to not spend too long on the phone. You need to get through that efficiently. We've got some other things that measure now the reopen percentage. If you imagine in the incident management system like OTRS that we have, so we create a ticket. The ticket then is followed up by us or somebody else in the service desk. We do all the things that we think are necessary to meet the objective of that ticket, and then we close the ticket. Okay, and then maybe the next day or the next week or the next month, the customer calls back and they have the same issue. And it's exactly the same, and that we have to open that ticket again. That's called reopen percent. That's a bad thing. All right. So if that number is becoming high, that means that we're not solving the incidents in a effective way. And so that's something that we need to do. We need to look at. Resolution percentage is kind of the inverse opposite of that. You know, of all of the problems that come in, of all of the incidents, how many of those were we able to resolve in a way that was satisfactory for our customer? Hopefully that will be, ideally it'd be 100%, but nothing's ever 100%. Right. So we can do customer surveys. Customers can be asked, how did that work with that service desk person? And we can monitor all of those things. A minute ago was about monitoring. Okay, so can we work together in a team? A lot of communication. We talked a lot about communication. When we did, we were talking mostly about communicating with our customers. Also, I need to communicate with our team members. And it's going to be a slightly different kind of communication because the first place, the relationship might be a little bit longer, but also it's going to have a different focus. So how can we work with our team members? We can encourage them. We can be honest with them. That's what we mean by expressing feelings. We can assume responsibility, basically work hard and be ethical. Still got more of these feedback. So sometimes somebody in the team needs to have something spoken to them. So feedback can be positive or negative. So that would be a negative feedback where there's a change of course needs to happen and somebody has to tell them that. Typically that's going to be from a manager, but other members of the team can sort of help them as well. And that's the way we should look at that, helpful, and that should be the way that it's presented, not as sort of like punishment or anything. Okay, so that's what's meant by this. When we have to give feedback, which is going to be requiring a change in direction, that needs to be done in a humane and a considerate way, that from the point of view of trying to help the person and trying to help the organization. So that requires a little bit of a couple of chats going on. And they share the same vision. That requires honesty, and it requires a bit of courage, because maybe it's just easier to ignore our colleague. We have colleagues that there's some things happening that they need to change their direction, and that's not my problem. But if we can find a way to sort of discuss that with them in a way which is, as I said, humane, and that's why another reason for developing those relationships with our colleagues, which are open but also professional, and so that kind of communication can come without it being sort of batted away. Yeah, okay, so formal or informal communication. Formal communication like an email is always going to be formal, I think, within an organization. And one reason for that is just the fact that it just stays around forever. You send an email and it's there, right? So you have to be kind of formal. You can't sort of be putting things on there that might be misunderstood by people. Then you have face-to-face conversations. Well, they can be a little bit more relaxed, I guess. And well, once you know who you're talking with. So when we're in a team, I hope you get these ideas. So what can we do if we join a team and everybody else is there? Well, we want to sort of try and figure out what everybody else is doing. We do that by working hard, volunteering to help people, learning the language that they're using. When we say learning the language, I don't mean Arabic versus English. I mean, like GPA and student center and these kind of things that are specific to that organization. And yeah, so trust and respect. This is all kind of vanilla stuff. I'm just going to sort of leave it at that. If you have a successful team, yeah, well, it won't be an accident. It's something that takes a lot of work, yeah. But as it says there, there's rewards from it. So I have spoken a lot, and I'm sorry for that, but we have reached the end of those slides, and I appreciate you guys hanging in there.